Yes, the host. All right. You've got a good crowd here. Remember Lorna Gittens? Yeah.
Welcome and good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking time to join us, and we will now begin the evening. Brother Regin.
Welcome, everyone. We come together this evening to remember and honor Black, Brown, and Indigenous men, women, and children that have been killed by police in North America since 2014. The numbers are staggering. And spurred on by the recent killing of George Floyd, we come before this evening to God in prayer to pray, lament, moan, and we need to express collectively our personal and collective pain and anger. But most of all, we come together to be strengthened, to affirm ourselves as human beings, and to remind us of the work we have ahead of us to achieve our liberation. Oscar Romero, the martyred Archbishop of Guatemala, says it this way as to why we're here. He says from his prayer, it helps now and then We planted seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, a step along the way, opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. And so we begin our evening understanding that we're depending on the Lord to give us the grace to do the rest. And we ask ourselves the question,
I dare you. Ask yourself, when did my baby become a threat to you?
When I cried, when I started to crawl, when I started to speak, when
we need to speak it.
tear word, when I started to dream, when I laughed for joy, when I played with my toy gun, when I learned to read, when my jeans were too baggy,
when I wore a hoodie, when I drove a car, when I left the library late from studying, when I protect my family, when you need jail cells filled, when I'm less than perfect.
Do it again.
Sorry about that.
I dare you. Ask yourself, when did my baby become a threat to you?
when I cried, when I started to crawl, when I started to speak, when I diet, tear word, when I started to dream, when I laughed for joy, when I played with my toy gun, when I learned to read, when my jeans were too baggy,
When I wore a hoodie, when I drove a car, when I left the library late from studying, when I protect my family, when you need jail cells filled, when I'm less than perfect, when I went for a run, when I went to the store, when I fought for your country, when I held my arms and my hands high, when I finally earned my degree, when I loved with my heart and soul, when I sat enjoying my coffee, when I go for a job interview,
when the dictation of my speech was not like yours,
when white women become uncomfortable, when I protested the injustice of the cage bill, when I wear a mask to protect you and myself, when I raise my voice, when I move too fast, when I agree.
when did my baby become a threat to me? When I was born,
When did my baby become a threat to you?
lift every voice and sing. Stiller than heaven, bring with the harmonies of living.
Let us pray. God of surprises, you call us from the narrowness of our traditions to new ways of being church, from the captivities of our culture to creative witness for justice, from the smallness of our horizons to the bigness of your vision. Clear the way in us, your people, that we might call others to freedom and renewed faith. Jesus, wounded healer, you call us. From preoccupation with our own histories and hurts, to daily tasks of peacemaking, from privilege to protocol, to partnership and pilgrimage, from isolation and insularity to inclusive community. Clear the way on us, your people, that we might call others to wholeness and integrity. Holy, transforming Spirit, you call us. From fear to faithfulness, from clutter to clarity, from a desire to control to deeper trust, from the refusal to love to a readiness to risk. Clear the way in us, your people, that we might all know the beauty and power and danger of the gospel. Amen. Jacqueline, unmute.
Sorry about that. A reading from the book of Isaiah. Shout out, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why do you fast, but you do not see? Why humble yourselves, but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interests on your fast days and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose? A day to humble oneself? Is it not to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth like ashes? Will you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed free and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin. Then your night shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you, and the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the seeking of evil, if you offer food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness and your gloom will be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a well-watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorers of streets to live in. Listen to the leading of the Spirit.
Thanks be to God.
Go ahead, Randy.
How is it that we find ourselves at this stage? A dual pandemic, one which erupted from a country half a world away, yet swept over our aged and vulnerable populations, especially in socio-economically challenged Black areas, very much like a tidal wave. There were 3 identified pandemics during the 20th century, and each also hit the poor and the disadvantaged. Then in the 21st century, Ebola. Although basically contained to Southeast Asia and Africa, there were international concerns as cases spread globally. SARS forced our attention in 2003, which added a new dimension to the word pandemic. By 2009, H1N1 influenza showed us how fast the pandemic could spread the world. And now in 2020, we have COVID-19. It is clear that over all those times, the economically and racially vulnerable were most affected. But this time there seems there is an added dimension as we mourn the loss of many to this pandemic. And simultaneously, we have a moral uprising that is also sweeping the globe in unexpected ways. His death and the last words of George Floyd, which repeatedly resound globally, "I can't breathe," forced a reaction to centuries of bigotry, discrimination, and racism. It was clear that with so many Black men willfully killed, many at the hands of white police officers, an intentional stand had to occur. The stories were told and retold, each added to the ledger and legends of stolen Black lives. In this case, the media and technology did what we as Blacks have not been able to do for decades. It let the world see how brutal force in North America is used to kill Black men. Some people say that racism has gotten worse. Actor Will Smith corrected that comment and said, "Racism has not gotten worse. It's getting filmed and disseminated for all the world to see." We saw periodic images of hundreds of bodies of COVID victims, but there is not an image that internationally resounded as the senseless. Yet how does one say this? In many ways now profoundly and historically meaning, sad murder of George Floyd. The history of anti-Black racism is forcibly being rewritten, but there is still much to do. At this particular time, I feel like so many other Black people, tired, exhausted, sick and tired, worried about health and safety, and the list of feelings go on. A heavy lassitude has embraced me. Like many of you, I've been buried in information as I watch and read unbelievable news, especially from our southern neighbor. Last night, as my MSN news feed pulsated across my screen, a story popped up about supporters leaving a recent rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to see the person who lives in the big house built by slaves. As they left, there was the chanting of Black Lives Matter. A white man was seen to have jumped out of his truck and pepper sprayed a Black demonstrator. A rally supporter was asked how would he explain the situation to his granddaughter, who was present. His response shocked me, although I don't know why, because nothing shocks me that comes from south of the border any longer. This is what he said: "I'll tell her that it's wrong, the way that they are doing things. It's not the way that we grew up learning about the history of our country. A history, I might add, which has been exclusive and whitewashed to the disadvantage of Blacks and many visible minorities who built the country. For years, we have been told exactly as this man said, we will do things the way that we were told, slow and steady. Slow and steady has not won the race. Where do we find ourselves today? Today, I'm stretched in several directions as we try to address the horrid issue of anti-Black racism. I'm a teacher, high school, and our board has been in the news for anti-Black racism directed at staff, but mostly students. Such should have been addressed decades ago, yet nothing happened. We wondered how some of our young people became concerned. And if we do, we need to look at our educational institutions. Parents must get involved at an early stage of their children's education. If they do not advocate for them, who will? From the time our children are labeled in elementary school, I know that the system and the stigma is set. The mold will not be broken when they leave elementary school. It becomes applied, not academic, because we're not worthy to go to university. It becomes they are bored, not challenged. We all have work to do. And post-secondary institutions are a world unto themselves. Trinity College finds itself in the news yet again. Several years ago, when students regularly met in a turret, unbeknown to administrators, with overtones of racism, that should have been a warning that much of what administrators already knew was not going to go away. Today, our college, including the College of Divinity, is forced to do what should have been done decades ago: examine its operational policies and admit that due to years of ignoring the problems of racism, they will not go away. For years, we as individuals spoke up and out about revising curriculum to make it more inclusive. It is easy for individual voices to be ignored, but I am so thankful for these 3 Black female students for exposing the long obvious. But it makes me think, what more could I have done? Our churches feeds from our theological colleges. They get what is produced. A couple of nights ago, I stumbled upon a discussion on Praise TVN between renowned gospel artist Kurt Franklin, Reverend Dr. Tony Evans, and Reverend Robert Moore. Franklin and Evans are Black. Moore is white, but they're all on the same journey regarding anti-Black racism. Their consensus: the church has been complicit in racial division. But many already know this because we're living through it. And this is something for our Anglican leadership to consider. Dr. Evans said the following: if the pulpits were different, the churches would have been different, and the culture would have had to react. He continued in his pithy style: when you have unaddressed prejudice married to power, you will have an unintended pregnancy that will give birth to an evil baby called racism. The church, our church, can no longer afford to stand on the sidelines. It is long overdue time to dust off the Mosley Report and activate the long overdue recommendations. To delay, or worse still, to deny any longer is to the church's detriment. Prophet Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said in a sermon, "A person dies when he or she refuses to stand up for what is right. A person dies when she or he refuses to stand up for justice." That saying has been paraphrased. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. This is my email signature because I embrace this ideal. I am convinced to my death that my character and my contributions to humanity will diminish if I do not follow my commitment to this social justice and this spiritual philosophy. I'm not a threat. I simply want to be me, a person shaped in the image of God and living as an equal child of God.
There is no sound, Lance.
Russell, can you just start it again with sound, please?
Refused to yell at Winona. Cry on the set of Dracula. And speaking of Keanu, he's back at work. Here he is with his girlfriend, Alexander Grant, laughing it up on the Berlin set of The Matrix 4. Well, it's a big night over on
Lord, my God, when I no wonder, consider all of the words thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy heart the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou And when I think God is son, not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in. Then on the cross, thy burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. And take me home, what joy from your and I shall bow in the humble
At the beginning of the outbreak of the pandemic, there was some interesting information going around on social media about Black immunity to the pandemic. It was misinformation because we know that as we look on the figures today, Blacks have been affected far more by any other group in terms of percentage wise. And this is borne out in the UK, where a recent a study showed that far more Black doctors and nurses have died as a result of being infected by the coronavirus in their jobs. And as we have been hearing on the news in our neighbors to the south, again, as a percentage, far more Blacks have been affected by the coronavirus. This seems to highlight for me the continued disparity and inequality that exists in our healthcare systems. And although I'm not familiar with the figures here in Canada, I will assume that they reflect similar outcomes to what we see in the UK and in the United States. And the question for me is, why such a radical difference in the outcomes? Why? And not only that, why was there misinformation about the impact of the coronavirus on Blacks? Was it started by Blacks? Where did that information come from? I listened to a doctor talked about not being able to convince his relatives that they were not immune to the coronavirus. It had been so embedded in their minds. Many of you might have seen all the videos on social media. Why is there misinformation among Blacks? It's a question that haunts me as I reflect on the coronavirus outbreak and as I reflect on what is happening in terms of the current protests. How is the information that is disseminated, how is it that we often get it so wrong? We have seen the videos on social media of Blacks being treated unjustly. We have seen the videos of Black children, in some instances, being abused by the police. The question is, why? Why does this continue to plague us as a people? Of course, there are some easy answers. Historically, the fact that slavery was an established way of life, and that the system in place belittled and undervalued the contributions of Blacks, called them lazy, although our forefathers and foremothers worked on the plantation 20 hours per day. So why then this image of who we are? And why does it persist? I was glad that we began with that video about I'm not a threat. Because I think on some levels, it's because we are seen as a threat that we're treated in this way. I have been in this diocese for over 30 years, and I have faced a lot. I have heard things have been spoken to me. I have endured a lot of racist comments, and I have sat and I've listened. Sometimes I have even written letters highlighting what has happened. And even recently, I brought to the attention of my bishops a recording that was left on my church phone. A recording that was difficult to listen to, a recording that was horrendous, a recording that I don't think anyone should have to hear. I'm not a threat to anyone, but I've lived through a church that has often seen me as a threat. I remember in the early years when I was still a young man, and a few of us were Blacks at Synod, and when we sat together, it was almost automatic that someone will come up to us and ask, what are you guys up to now? So much so that even throughout my ministry, I've had to be conscious about what whites will think if I do certain things or say certain things. I am not a threat. Yes, I may have a booming voice. Yes, I may stand tall, but that is how God made me. I am not a threat. I'm here to support the life and ministry of the church, to be a pastor, to be a friend to all those who come under my care, in spite of their racial background or sexual orientation. I'm here because God called me, I believe, to be a priest, to be his servant. I have endured a lot. I continue to endure a lot. But I am not a threat. I don't want past historical opinions of Blacks who came before me to be imposed on me. I don't want white people to feel that they have to placate me in any way. I've watched some very sad videos in my view, to be quite frank, and some people may disagree with me, with white people washing Black people's feet and asking for forgiveness and so forth. Yes, it might be symbolic, but we need more than that. We need material change in people's attitude towards us. Today we see corporations and institutions giving all kinds of statements about how they will change. But I think what we need is action. Action that will transform the status quo. Actions that will bring equality to the forefront. And so, as I reflect on what is happening in our world, I want to see equality in healthcare and in health outcomes. I want to see equality in wages for people of color. I want to see equality in opportunity for people of color in the church. I want to see that the transformation that we all hope for will come in our time. I'm cautiously optimistic about the things I hear, about the direction in which our society is going. But I'm reminded that there have been times in the past when people were very hopeful about outcomes, and yet we settled back into the norms. I hope and pray as we go forward that the church leaders who are here today will take time to think about the concrete changes that need to take place in the life of our institution. Blacks are not a threat. We're here. We want to be equals in a just society. Thank you.
Let us pray. Nations rise together in harmony and sing praises to our God, for all creation is a gift to the people of the world. Embrace the diversity that God has blessed us with, and see that together we are one body in Christ.
Why did you make me black, Lord? Lord, why did you make me black? Why did you make someone the world would hold back? Black is the color of dirty clothes, of grimy hands and feet. Black is the color of darkness, of tired, beaten streets. Why did you give me thick lips, a broad nose, and kinky hair? Why did you create someone who receives the hatred stare? Black is the color of the bruised eye when someone gets hurt. Black is the color of darkness. Black is the color of dirt. Why is my bone structure so thick, my hips and cheeks so high? Why are my eyes brown and not the color of the sky? Why do people think I'm useless? How come I feel so used? Why do people see my skin and think I should be abused? Lord, I just don't understand. What is it about my skin? Why is it some people want to hate me and not know the person within? Black is what people label when others want to keep them away. Black is the color of shadows cast. Black is the end of the day. Lord, you know my own people mistreat me, and you know that just ain't right. They don't like my hair, they don't like my skin, as they say I'm too dark or too light. Lord, don't you think it's time to make a change? Why don't you redo creation and make everyone the same? God's reply, why did I make you black? Why did I make you black? I made you in the color of coal from which beautiful diamonds are formed. I made you in the color of oil, the black gold which keeps people warm. Your color is same as the rich dark soil that grows the food you need. Your color is the same as the black stallion and panther. Oh, a majestic creature indeed. All colors of the heavenly rainbow can be found throughout every nation. When all these colors are blended, you become my greatest creation. Your hair is the texture of lamb's wool. Such a beautiful creature is he. I am the shepherd who watches them. I will always watch over thee. You are the color of the midnight sky. I put star glitter in your eyes. There's a beautiful smile hidden behind your pain. That's why your cheeks are so high. You are the color of dark clouds from the hurricanes I create in September. I made your lips so full and thick, so when you kiss, they will remember. Your stature is strong, your bone structure thick to withstand the burden of time. The reflection you see in the mirror, the image that looks back, that is mine. So get off your knees, look in the mirror, and tell me what you see. I didn't make you in the image of darkness. I made you in the image of me.
Good evening, everyone. I've been really reflecting on Jesus turning tables. And it's been something I've always been reflecting on. I think as soon as I started my studying my master's, I started to really contemplate what it meant for Jesus to turn these tables. Just want to give you some historical context. So Jesus enters into the temple. He had just been showered with palm leaves, and everyone has said, Hosanna, Hosanna. And he gets to the temple and he sees that something is wrong. Something is terribly wrong in the temple. He sees that people have set up tables and they are selling things that would be used for the sacrifices, for people's offerings. And what dawns on me is that Leviticus it sets up a whole system to ensure that whether you were wealthy or poor, you could give your sacrifice. Yet, there's tables set up. There's tables set up to keep certain people in and certain people out. If your dove or your burnt offering was not up to the code of the people at the gate or at the temple entrance, then you were directed to the tables. So Jesus sees this and he turns the tables, he just tears it all up. He tears it all up so that it couldn't come back again. There was no opportunity for them to reset those tables, to organize the items. It was done. He tears it up and he blocks the passageway for people to continue oppressing the less fortunate. So I thought about that, okay, and I've asked myself, okay, what am I willing to turn tables for? Am I willing to turn tables like Jesus? Am I willing to disrupt things, to mess things up, to ensure that nothing will be the same? And I've been thinking about that, seriously. And I think that's what's been motivating me since the end of May to continue to keep going, and not just to keep going for myself, but for my siblings, for my family members, for everyone that is not in a position to speak up for themselves. But what I realized recently, and it dawned on me after reading Christina Cleveland, she talks about Jesus is a white man and how we need to tear that up. And it dawned on me that Jesus didn't just turn tables for people who were less fortunate, he turned tables for people who were like him. Jesus turned tables for people who were poor. Jesus didn't own much, if he owned anything. Jesus turned tables for people who were seen as outcasts. Jesus' birth was not the most typical passageway or typical way of being born. I'm sure there are people that had rumors about Jesus. And one thing that I think that Christina Cleveland talks about that is really important is that Jesus is not white. Jesus is a racialized man. Whether you want to call him black or brown, he's not white. He goes to Egypt because he can blend in. Jesus is not white. And it made me think about the blocks that we put people in, or the way we keep people out. In their situation, they were keeping out the poor. They were keeping out people who didn't have the funds. But I wonder if in our church, we are keeping out racialized groups, marginalized groups, by having pictures of white Jesus. Are we setting up tables to keep people from actually getting to their blessing, keeping people from getting to the healing that they're supposed to experience by having this picture of white Jesus? This picture that is not Jesus. This picture that doesn't help us get to Jesus. This picture that only supports white supremacy. Are we setting up tables by having white Jesus? I've been thinking about this. Jesus turned tables for people that were like him. He turned tables for racialized people. He turned tables for people who were poor. And I'm realizing that this ideology of Jesus being white, it sets us up for something that leads us into a destructive path. If we can lie about Jesus's racial identity, then what else can we lie about? What else are we willing to lie about? If we can sit in churches with pictures of Jesus and then sing and hand out papers with pictures of Jesus and talk to people and show images that are not of Jesus and say, this is Jesus, then what else are we willing to lie about? So let's bring it home, because I know we like to look at south of the border and say, you know, America is just going to hell and Canada is not that bad. But the truth is, if we're willing to lie about who Jesus is, then we're also willing to lie about the things that happen in Canada. We're willing to lie and forget about what we did to, what white Canadians did to Indigenous people and what they're still doing to Indigenous people. When we lie about Jesus, we also are lying about what happens to racialized and Black people every single day. When we lie about what happens in our country, we make space to forget Regis and DeAndre. We make space to forget about the people that are dying right here. So recently, the community I was raised in, that I still call home, Malton, Ontario, in Mississauga, came up on the news. A brown man who was schizophrenic was killed by the police. They literally took a ladder to his door or to his window to ensure that he wouldn't harm himself, and they shot him. His family didn't even call for the police, but the police showed up. And I watched as everyone on my timeline, everyone that I spoke to was in shock and horror. Because, oh my goodness, how could this happen in Canada? Again, another woman came and spoke about her story in Brampton, in Malton, and she said that she was tased. Police called her to get out of her house. She was tased to the floor, and then they shot her in her abdomen. And now they're pressing criminal charges against her and her boyfriend. It's just great. It gets better and better. And people are watching these stories and they're in shock. But as a child that grew up in Malton, I know that the police are not for people like me. Because they're not there to serve me. They're not there to protect me. And I often wonder, how are people so shocked? How are people amazed that these things happen? Why do they not realize that racialized people are targets when it comes to law enforcement, targets in their workplace, targets in the education system? How many more studies do they have to do to believe us? But the reason that this shock is possible is because we make space for the lie. So we're talking about solutions. We're talking about how can we, move forward, concrete actions. I think the number one concrete actions that Christianity can do is destroying white Jesus. Because when we destroy white Jesus, we remove the opportunity to lie about more things. We destroy white Jesus, and we realize how white Jesus was used as a tool to oppress Indigenous and Black people. We use the tool to say that you are less than. You are not like the Savior. The Savior cannot identify with you. And because of that, now you need to identify with us in order to be identified with the Savior. So as a personal reflection, I think there's something that we all need to think about. I think that there's ways that we oppress every single person when we have power. Who are you blocking from the temple? What lie are you creating to block certain people from opportunities to actually experience the true Christ? Jesus saw what those people were doing, and he turned those tables. Because he said, blocking, no more. There are no more obstacles for you to get into the house of the Lord. But the truth is that within our churches, we create lots of spaces and lots of tables to keep certain people in and certain people out. So I ask you, who are you blocking? Are racialized people allowed into your space? Can they identify with your cause? Can they see themselves in the God that you worship? And it's not just for them. Killing white Jesus is historical. It's true. He's not blonde with blue eyes. So my encouragement within this Canadian context, we need to wake up and realize that we have created more lies. We have created lies that create opportunity for injustice. We create lies that create opportunities for people to be abused. We create lies that create space for police officers to put a ladder to someone's window and shoot them dead in their home. We create lies that create space for people to die from their balcony. 2 people that I know of have died after having mental health checks with the police from a balcony. little lies create space for injustice. They laid a foundation for injustice. So what can we do? We can stop worshiping the lie that is white Jesus. And we can move forward in saying there are more lies that we have continued to say, and there are more ways that we need to reconcile so that people can actually have a true experience with Christ and they can be healed. Thank you.
Holy One, we this evening call the spirits of those who have been victims of racial murder at the hands of law enforcement in both Canada and the United States. Their memory is the symbol and the hope of the struggle and our commitment to keep our eyes on the prize. That is to courage building, healing, and empowerment. The men and women and children we remember are a reminder and a challenge to all of us that we can no longer be silent or complacent. For with each breath we breathe, we choose freedom. We choose to breathe the breath of God.
We remember Abram Adi, Orlando Brown, Jermaine Carty, Randy Cochran, Pierre Corlan, Lester Donaldson, Jamal Frankique, Nicholas Gibbs, Earl Paulette, Albert Johnson, Jasmal Singh Lale, Michael Wade Lawson, Mardad Bayrani, DeAndre Campbell, Dwayne Christian, Jason Collins, Ty Dawson, Michael Egan, Renee Gallet, Ibram Hassan, Elisa Hudson, Regis Korchinski Paquette, Raymond Lawrence, Andrew Loki, Mokir Badat, Junior Manon, the Newton Four, still under investigation 9 years later. Eric Owie, Ian Price, Greg Ritchie, Quasi Kenny, Sean Thompson, Aaron Varley, Michael Beneu, Chad Wilson, Mark Kambai Oki, Sammy Yetim, Elaine Magor, Reese Maxwell, Josephine Pelletter, O'Brien Christopher Reed, Tony Rameg Nugolo, Faraz Solomon, Nicholas Thorne Balance, Otto Bass, Brian Whitestone, Bonnie Jean-Pierre, Tony Dew.
In the US, say their name: Eric Garner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Ezeal Ford, Dante Parker, Michelle Cusseau, Laquan MacDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Romaine Brisbane, Jermaine Reed, George Mann, Matthew Ajibade, Frank Smart, Natasha McKenna, Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexa Christian, Brandon Glenn, Victor Manuel La Rosa, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Gray, Joseph Mann, Salvador Ellswood, Sandra Bland, Albert Joseph Davis, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel Du Bois, Michael Sebi, Brian Keith Day, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Assam Farrow Manley, Felix Camus, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamontez Jones, Patterson Brown, Dominic Hutchinson, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Trey Crawford, India Kaga, Levante Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall, Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tignor, Miguel Espinel, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews, Betty Jones, Quintonio Legere, Keith Childless Jr., Janet Wilson, Randy Nelson, Anthony Scott, Wendell Celestine, David Joseph, Kalan Rocamore, Deshaun Perkins, Christopher Davis, Marco Loud, Peter Gaines, Tori Robinson, Darius Robinson, Kevin Hicks, Mario Talixo, DeMarcus Sumay, Willie Tillman, Terrell Thomas, Seville Smith, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Terrence Croucher, Paul O'Neill, Altera Woods, Jonathan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Ronald Foster, Stefan Clark, Antoine Rose II, Botham Jean, Pamela Turner, Dominique Clayton, Atatia Jefferson, Christopher Whitfield, Christopher McCovey, Eric Reason, Michael Lorenzo Dean, Breonna Taylor. So many names that are omitted that we are unaware of, and that of George Floyd.
We pray. Let us turn into the stillness and listen to God speak the voice of the heart. God said to all those we have just remembered and to us present that God made us for God's self. God made us like God's self. God delights in us. God says, I made you for myself. I wanted you. I made you like myself. I made you good and I made you free. I am here. I am as close as a prayer. I am breathing in your breath. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to share a personal reflection with you tonight. It is truly an honor and blessing to be in this space with other Black Christians, Christians of color, and allies. You may notice that my reflection this evening follows a bit of a trajectory that has a consistent theme, but I won't give that away. I'll let you figure that out for yourselves. So let's begin. The collision. When COVID-19 hit, I was in the midst of a very typical spring for me. I was in the middle of teaching an undergraduate course at McMaster University while still managing my full-time work as a civil servant with the provincial government. I was involved in a multitude of activities, including volunteering on many church committees and serving as a vice chair of board of directors for a national women's organization. As some young people may say today, I was doing the most. Actions that have really undertaken by so many Black women that are constantly working and striving and pressing to be acknowledged and respected and believed in the face of persistent and pervasive racism. I remember receiving the email on Friday afternoon from the Secretary of Cabinet that informed us that we would not be returning to work for the foreseeable future. I also remember going into work the following Saturday because I had a major project that was due and it was pressing upon me, and I thought the quiet space would be a great help. I realized that I put myself at risk, and I obviously was not practicing the gift of discernment that God has given us. But like I said, the striving, the working, the pressing is constant. When the lockdown went into place and the severity of the pandemic became apparent, it felt like I had been in a car accident with a severe case of whiplash. I tried my best to adjust, of course, limiting my movements and feeling the frustration that all of us had in terms of, really feeling an unexpected injury of sorts. I was so thankful that I was still able to work and communicate with friends and family from afar. But as the days turned into weeks and the initial shock really started to wear off, it just became a numbing, dulling discomfort. You know how usually after you've been in an accident, you are more cautious, more wary, more hesitant when you get back on the road? I wasn't. I guess I just was so tired that I really couldn't focus, and I couldn't necessarily fasten my seatbelt or test my airbags. So when a very familiar 18-wheeler monster of a truck came barreling down the highway that is my life, I was not prepared. I could hear it careening and screeching out of control as it took the lives of Maud Aubrey and of Breonna Taylor. But I did my best to stay focused and keep driving because I knew it was always there. It was a constant on my highway. What I've come to realize is that it is impossible to swerve out of its way. I know this because it has hit me many times before. It has hit me in countless ways. On my first day of school at a new school in grade 2, when 2 white boys pushed me into a fence, pulled my hair, ripped my clothes. In my early teens, when my mom and I were traveling into Quebec and refused entry at a bed and breakfast after making all the necessary arrangements and payments via phone. In being told that the only reason I was accepted into the doctoral program was because of my identity and the exotic topic I had chosen. In the unsolicited touching of my hair by complete strangers. In being pulled aside at a friend's wedding by her uncle and being told that he would take me like he takes his coffee. Black, no cream, no sugar. The deaths of Regis Kaczynski-Paquette and George Floyd were a head-on collision to me. I was laid out for days. The collection. When I was finally able to function, and by function, I mean not running into the bathroom to sob in between work calls or Zoom meetings. I mean being able to clearly see through my right eye, which had completely flared up. I mean being able to sleep more than a couple hours a night. I began the process of regrouping, which I undertake in different forms after every single accident. Central to my processing and my healing during this time has been the act of collecting. I find myself actively collecting childhood and family memories, of collecting Bible verses, of collecting anti-Black racism resources. I think about the experiences of my parents who lived through the civil rights movement as university students in Montreal and went on to raise my brothers who are now Black fathers, who continue to push and succeed in a world that sees them as less than. I think about my nieces and nephews, young as they are, who are trying to build their own identities and take pride in them. Doing this has given me the strength and resolve to keep going when I have needed to confront silences, biases, and denials in my personal and professional life. Have I been disappointed by the reactions or lack thereof of individuals and institutions that are central to the fabric of my life? Absolutely. Have I consistently and clearly communicated the need for inclusion, representation, and active acceptance in the spaces I occupy and beyond? Yes, I have. And I have done so often at times knowingly putting myself at risk to shed light and to educate others. Yet I know that the Lord does not want my heart to be troubled to the point of debilitation or depletion. This experience has illustrated the necessity of balance and preservation for Black peoples across the world. The burden is not ours to carry. The commitment. My commitment to Christ is primary in shaping my commitment to fighting racial injustice. I cannot separate one without the other, and I believe this must be true for any true believer in Christ. I gather comfort from reading my devotions, from praying out loud, from seeking God's counsel. I know I am loved and cared for by Jesus, by my partner, by my family, and so many others. I know that communities and forums such as these provide a very important respite on this journey. But I also know that that careening, screeching truck has not been dismantled. I am committed to puncturing its tires, to releasing its oil, to draining its fuel any chance I get, so that if it comes for me again, I can be the David to its Goliath. May God grant us all the courage and strength to do so.
I first want to thank Randy, Donald, Brittany, and Jessica for sharing your reflections. I hope that we have listened. I just want to reflect back some of the things we heard. When did my baby become a threat to you? Racism has not gotten worse. It is getting filled. Church can no longer stand on the sideline. Church has been complicit in racial division. I am not a threat to you. Why was misinformation about how COVID-19 affected Black people? I have endured racism for many years. We need material change in people's attitudes towards us. We need action that would bring equality to the forefront. Equality of opportunity in the church. I am cautiously optimistic. Why did you make me Black? God's reply, I made you in the image of me. Jesus overturned the tables. He overturned the tables of exploitation, indifference, recklessness. Jesus turned tables for those who were like him, the poor, the outcast, the downtrodden. Church, who are we keeping out? Who are we keeping out of the temple? The images that portray false understanding of the Savior. Who are we blocking from entering the temple because of the images we portray? Our Eurocentric theology must be challenged. Little lies create space for injustice. Little lies create space for injustice. The highway, the truck barreling down the highway. First day at school, in my teens, unsolicited touching of my hair, but I am resolved to continue. The burden is not ours to carry. There is a balm in Gilead. Racism is a sin. Let us pray. We, the members of the Black Anglicans, commit ourselves to the mission which Jesus aligned himself when he set out on mission to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and the recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God who has brought us thus far on the way, receive all that we offer to you as tokens of our gratitude for your grace and mercy. Grant that with all those who feel the weight of racism, exclusion, and oppression bearing down on their shoulders, we will continue to walk with you in faith and with them on that path that leads to liberation and life. May God, who in Christ has called you to God's service, make you worthy of that calling, equip you and enable you to share in his life-giving and liberating work. And now may the blessing of our liberating and life-giving God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, come down upon you, be with you and all whom you love, here, those whom we remember, now and always. Amen.
Amen.
Miss Aretha